And we are live.
Yay.
So, welcome to our snowy stoa this week. We've had a snowstorm, so Gil can't be here, which is sad. But I have my wonderful wife. This is my partner in crime. This is Kinsey. If you'd like to introduce yourself to the internet.
Hi, Internet. um,
No. So, anyways, today, just so we can kind of give you guys a quick philosophy video, because most of you guys, if you're in Texas or at least somewhere where it snowed, you guys are stuck inside. So hopefully I can give you guys something to kind of pass the time and give some food for thought. Today's little topic is going to fall under our philosophies playlist, and we're going to talk about you, more specifically all of us, but we're going to talk about the journey of, and this is kind of contrived, but finding yourself. And then more importantly, keeping yourself. And I kind of, I guess this is an easy segue into some of my notes here. That there's an inscription over, was this the, it's the Temple of Delphi. And the Temple of Delphi, it's referenced in a couple of old Greek stories, is where the Oracle of Delphi was. And Delphi is like the city state. I think it's the Temple of Apollo. Inscribed on the top of it, it does say, "Know thyself." And I find it ironic because you go there to go talk to an oracle, which was a old Greek version of kind of a palm reader. They'd go take some drugs and say that Apollo themselves was talking through them. The god would speak through them and give you some real cryptic, kind of weird prophecy about your fate or something about you or the future. And then whoever it was that went would go leave and then pine over this for the rest of their life, and then would freak out about, Cersei Lannister style of, oh, my kids are going to kill me or something crazy. Um, and I found that very counterintuitive to the Stoic mindset, where we believe that we do have control. We are the masters of our fate. And uh, part of that is, accepting the fact that no, I'm not just subject to the universe. There's certain things like tornadoes and hurricanes or things that happen to you at birth that, yeah, you have no control over. But everything else, and especially your attitude towards these things, are completely in your control. This is the idea of being stoic is that you're unmoved and unchanged by what the world kind of throws at you. But a huge part of that is knowing yourself, and we'll go back to that know thyself aspect of it. You are, in a beautiful, unique way, was it fearfully and intentionally made? Or
yeah.
intentionally and fearfully made is the way the Bible said. They made you as you were, and for a reason. And in a more, I guess, utilitarian way, uh, it's you are yourself because you are only useful to us in your uniqueness. I guess that's the best way I can try to kind of put this in lesser words. And so finding yourself and keeping yourself is really the only way that you can be, I guess, as a Stoic, productive to society. You have a watch. I grew up in Texas. I lived in Texas. I still work in Texas. I bought a house in Texas. I went to high school in Texas. I have never left the borders of Texas. You have a much cooler
Oh,
story
thanks.
about finding thyself than I do.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, give him,
So,
your history.
okay.
After our technical difficulty, she can restart our story on her life story,
Well, the
the abbreviated version.
abbreviated. Uh, so I've always been that weird little kid who wanted to go to the moon or somewhere else, and every day in class, I would be doodling on my papers or daydreaming, and that's always been me. And I've never, you know, I was very shy for a
Yeah.
long time, and I still am. But I tried to beat that out of myself and make myself so I wasn't so scared. But I tried to. I try a little bit to fit into a mold, but I've always been too weird to like fit in too well.
Unique. Let's go with
Unique.
unique, not weird.
I never noticed things like brand names or what was popular, and so I was just in my own little world, and I always wanted to write stories, and so yeah, I'd be off in some adventure, and oh yeah, there's reality here. That's much more boring, and so yeah, but in high school, an art teacher told me that doing anything out of your comfort zone would make you a better artist. And I was like, well, I want to do that.
Let's be a better artist, yeah.
And she told me the story of her putting a eraser on her head, which sounds ridiculous, but she was a shy person like myself, and I loved her. But yeah, she put an eraser on her head to see if a teacher or anybody would notice, because she was even more shy than I was at that age. And the teacher at the end of class said, "Why do you have an eraser on your head? Why have you had it on there the whole time?" And but anyway, that pushed me to go, oh wow, well, I'm gonna do everything out of my comfort zone, and so I did. And but I still, so the things that seemed impossible to me were suddenly like, well, if I just keep doing all these little things out of my comfort zone that make me scared, like saying hi to random strangers, eventually.
I was once a random stranger you said hi to.
Yeah.
Hey.
I told you, I come from a broken home.
Yes.
Leave me alone.
Hello, handsome man.
No, not exactly. Not exactly.
Inset cute picture of when we first started dating.
But mostly this guy, whatever. But so, I eventually, all of my dreams of going to the moon, then I didn't get to go to the moon, but, I got to go to the other side of the world and live in China for a while. After graduating.
She acts like it's like 2 days that you live there.
For 2 years. It was exciting.
Goodness.
And I met some of the coolest people ever. They were all out there trying to find themselves too. We were all pretty lost. And I still have my faith. Like, I've always been a Christian, but I don't know. There was a lot, the culture shock is a real thing. And there was a lot of, I was in a big city, Shanghai, so fast. A lot of people living this fast lifestyle, and I was a small town girl from Clute, Texas.
From Flute, Texas?
Like 5,000 people, and I grew up with my grandparents raised me, so very old school grandparents that I just adore. So yeah, it was a big shock, and then China was a big shock on top of that. And but yeah, I think I eventually kind of did find myself after traveling in different places, and I met my best friend there, besides you.
Yeah, besides me. Hmm?
So, yeah.
So what? So I guess I'm gonna speak on behalf of the audience since they can't actually ask you. Well, we'll live stream these one day. But what? When you come from something you're comfortable with, and it's one thing to go from like high school, like, hey, I'm going to be more outgoing, or I'm going to try out for this organization or club or run for class president, versus I'm going to leave driving on the right side of driving in general in Texas to public transportation and a language that's nothing at all like English, and food and daily customs. Like, what did you learn about yourself coming from here to there and then coming back? Because I think that's you've explained this to me multiple times, but I think it's something cool for kind of our audience, especially on this subject matter.
I'm not sure what you mean. Sorry. I there's like little things, and but it's not about myself. I learned that in a lot of ways the way we do things is very different than the way other people do things, and the thing that surprised me the most was and this is a sidetrack, I'm sorry.
No,
but,
we are the rabbit hole channel, my way.
After all of the things, the cultural differences and all of that, what surprised me the most was that half of the people that I was teaching with, the English speakers that were teaching in an international school, and I was the art teacher and they were teaching other subjects, when we go in public transportation, they would always speak English, and I thought, well, that's interesting, most people... Oh, there's this weird... I don't think it happens as much anymore, but growing up, people would always say, oh, why don't they just speak English in America? And I was like, wow, Americans are speaking English in China?
And that's a pretty big, yeah. That's a huge language barrier. It's not even Latin.
Yeah, I tried to learn the language as much as I could. And it wasn't a dig, but I did come home on a plane in Seattle, and there's a big Chinese population there, and they had on the subway Chinese on there, and some American tourists were saying, or not tourists, Americans on Seattle Airport.
I'm now the American tourist.
Some Americans on the Seattle bus were like, "Oh my gosh, Chinese is everywhere," and I was like, if you were in China, you would have been speaking English. So
Yeah.
I don't know. That was such a tangent. I'm sorry.
No, I think what's fun about that is that there's and to go back to Western society here, there's the old saying is when you're in Rome, do as the Romans do, and again when you're in China, you speak the language. I mean, if you're here, there are certain customs and things and social norms, I guess is the easiest way to summarize all that. That are unique to that scenario, and to a point, you do have to assimilate. If you want to function in a healthy, productive manner, assimilation's inevitable. That could be from one town to another, or again, one side of the planet to another, or if you ever went to the moon,
yeah,
wear spacesuits, you know.
Speaking of assimilation, in Shanghai, I don't know about the other cities in China, because they probably, being a big, busy city. Whenever you have to go through somewhere, you can't be, the southern polite girl.
No, you go.
You won't get on
you go.
You won't get on the subway train. You just won't. And so, I was knocked over by an old man. He booty bumped me, got me out of the line, just walked me over. Actually, he kind of tackled me out of my place in line to take my place in line one time. And so, I mean, I didn't tackle any old people or anything like that. But you have to push your way through things. And that's just how it is. And so, yeah, I nearly knocked over a couple people coming back after I had lived there for so long. But then I thought, oh no, I'm in America. Better not push over anybody to get through. And you have to wait. And I don't know. Coming back was weirdly harder. Things that are normal are no longer normal.
And the reason I subjected you to having to say that, I know she hates having to do public speaking and stuff, but yeah. I love her and adore her, and she's the most precious thing to me ever. There is a journey, and we're going back to this find yourself thing, and she left here with a certain set of values and a certain set of things that she held true to herself. She was an explorer. She was an adventurer. She loved trying new things. She believed in God. She had a high sense of self-value. She had dreams and aspirations of becoming a writer and an artist and all these things. She left, became a teacher, lived in a couple places, traveled to New Zealand and a bunch of cool places, and came back, had to deal with all the weird custom adjustments, still wanted to be a writer, still believed in God. And even if that perspective changes a bit, most of finding yourself is just simply allowing yourself to be somewhere where no one's going to reaffirm your beliefs and your principles, and seeing what's really left. How much of this did you really believe it? How much of this really lined up with your sense of self? And I think that journey, and yours is mine's not that cool. I went from like Dallas to Fort Worth, but like you left there and came back, obviously changed. There's certain things that, you can't say didn't affect you in a major way. There's certain life events and experiences that obviously adjusted your worldview, but you were still there. And you were, there was I think he was a youth pastor actually, that he used a really cool analogy, and he talked about people being like sandpaper, and people being like water, and then people that are like miners. And he goes, certain life events and people have that effect on you. He says, you want people that are sanders. Sanding takes off as little material as it can and to shape you in a place where you want to be and you want to go. Miners are using like TNT and blowing stuff up and irreparably losing traumatic events and stuff like that. You want to avoid those, obviously. And sometimes you can't. But you want to control how that affects you. If you give people the opportunity to use TNT to shape you, they're going to use it, and it's going to have a horrible effect on you, versus kind of only allowing these life experiences to add to yourself or to add to who you are, as opposed to like taking away from it. I really liked, it's just your story's way cool. I don't even own it. I've never had a passport. And so you actually going and having this cool like Odyssey journey of going somewhere else. The worst case scenario is I went somewhere where they didn't have like Tex-Mex food. and I was very put off by that.
It's sad.
Yeah, well, and it is sad, but like
they have a good restaurant in Shanghai.
yeah, well, and it's
No,
there's value to that, and I guess my whole reason for kind of opening this discussion about that is that I think anyone that never leaves their hometown, or no one that never leaves their comfort zone, there's the things that are familiar and approachable to them, are missing out on quite literally the real version of themselves, the tested version of themselves. That there's this quality of life you'll never fully understand or appreciate, regardless of how much money you have or how successful you get. You don't know yourself in that situation. It's why people run 5Ks and marathons. It's why people, make goals for every year at the beginning of the year. They want to know if there's a better version of themselves, or if they can understand themselves better. And that whole know thyself thing really it comes full circle with life experience. And I'm sorry for anybody that's young that's watching this. And by young, I mean like under 25. You don't know yourself yet. I don't know my 40-year-old self yet. I'm getting there, but I don't. There are things that are going to happen to me in life that I don't understand, and I'll never appreciate. Again, with my experience, I've been in law enforcement for almost 4 years now, and that experience has fundamentally changed my perspective in life. There are things about me that it can't change, and shouldn't change, but there's huge PTSD scars. There's huge I didn't know this stuff happened in a first world country kind of scars. There's a lot of stuff I can't unsee from that. And we'll have another video about marriage and relationships. I think it's a huge part of that because I'm going to force you to come back for that. But part of finding yourself is finding others. And we talked about this with interpersonal relationships prior to this video. But galvanizing yourself with the things you do like about yourself. I like that I'm an empathetic person. Or, my Christian beliefs are pretty important to me. So I'll surround myself with some people that are going to agree with me or going to fortify those aspects of me. But I still, again, I think you'd be remiss to not expose yourself. I love Mormons do this. Well, they'll send themselves off at 18 to go just conquer the world. They give you kind of nothing.
Or the 2-year, it's only men, I think.
Is it? Well,
I think so. Maybe they do.
Either way, it's cool because they
cool.
just send them out. You have a whole lifetime worth of, the Book of Mormon and the Gospel or whatever. Send them out in the world and say you're going to come back, hopefully a better, stronger person for it. And I think that's just a cool.
That's their ministry.
Ministry, there it is. There, you got this. That's more. She reads more books than I do, clearly.
I just really like, I like Brandon Sanderson, and I learned about Mormons.
Shout out. Huge shout out.
I don't know why. I'm not Mormon, but.
And I think he's got a great. Speaking of Brandon Sanderson, he's an author. He writes a bunch of fantasy novels.
Yes.
He's one of the most prolific fantasy authors of our generation. But he actually has a really cool YouTube channel where he kind of pontificates like we're trying to do here. And he talks a lot about being true to yourself and finding voice and and this is all in context of book writing, but it's applicable to kind of your everyday life. And I think the guy comes from a really wise place, and I think it's really cool that someone like him that's a millionaire by selling books is willing to go take the time to disseminate that information to us mere mortals with 20 subscribers and whatever those mortals.
Yeah, he puts all his wealth of knowledge out there for free on YouTube because he teaches at Brigham Young University, and I've watched all of his lectures multiple times because I want to be a better writer. Yeah. And if anyone knows how to do it well, it's him. So
holla at your boy, Brandon Sanderson, my guy. And insert Brandon Sanderson. This is kind of an interesting segue to with him being a writer, and he actually brings this up, and he talked about work-life balance. We were actually just recently watching a video about this, and he was talking about the practicalities of being a writer, and this is true with any profession or any affiliation, but he kind of, to break down or boil down what he was talking about, he's like, I had to figure out work-life balance the second he got married and he had kids, and he's like, I have to have uninterrupted writing time. This is his main source of income, like anybody else. He has to clock into work, but for him it's writing time and thinking time. But that he also had to block out non-writing time. He's like, I will not write between this time and this time because I want to be present.
Yeah.
I want to have a relationship with my wife. I want to be there as a dad. Because these relationships are important to me, but I can't have these conflict. If they can't live harmoniously, I can't have them.
Yeah.
Because again, it hurts him twice. And there's a quote from Fight Club, and I literally wrote this down in my notes. I thought it was perfect. But you are not your job. You are not the clothes you wear. You are not the party you voted for. You are not the car you drive. You are not your things. You are not these small little aspects of your life. You are yourself. And that we give you, and I said this earlier, we give you a name at birth for a reason and not a number. If you didn't matter and what you could contribute to this world didn't matter, we just slap a number on you, here's your social security number, and boot you out the door. Someone, and some of y'all have weird names. I know because I run a bunch. But, you are given a name and the opportunity to have purpose in this world and value that. That's literally, outside of your life itself, the most valuable thing I think about your life. And people try weirdly super hard to belong to places as opposed to belong to themselves. And I think it's like one of the most depressing things ever is to watch someone completely. I see it in my career. Guys will live, breathe, and eat, their job, and they're like, I want to go chase bad guys and do whatever, and are 3 divorces in, and the only steady relationship they have is with alcohol.
Yeah.
That's not life. Cool. You made 1,000 arrests this year, but you go home to an empty thing. Your dog hates you. The dog doesn't even recognize you. That's why he's pooping on the floor. But like you can't develop any of those relationships, and once that career is gone, you have nothing.
Yeah. Well, I was watching, I don't remember who it was, maybe the School of Life video talking about
I'll let you boy.
one of the first questions anybody asks anybody else is, what do you do? And, well, if you don't have some successful or interesting job, then people think it's unfortunate and shouldn't be this way. But a lot of times people go, oh, okay, well, I don't want to talk to this person. They're not that interesting or successful. And, well, this person might be, an exceptional violinist or collect, I don't know, flamingos from all over the world. Something
Yeah.
weird. You have no idea. And so, okay, but because they're, I don't know, some uninteresting thing.
Sure. Well, you're an elementary school teacher. Well, I'm
Yeah.
not interested in elementary school kids, so clearly I don't want to talk to you. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and living in Shanghai, being an art teacher, talking to people, it gave me some kind of weird sense of everyone go, oh, wow, that's so interesting. You must be so cool. I just lucked out and got an art teaching job, and that wasn't even my degree.
No.
It was English education, but I happened to be able to do art. But it was like, oh, you teach English, right? Oh, art? Okay, well, suddenly you're interesting, because that's different and unique.
And I think you're right, and I think it's the saddest. Again, someone just purely based off your affiliation with something, and in this instance, it's a job, but you wear that brand of clothing. Well, clearly we don't have anything in common. My favorite's truck drivers. I drive an old, dusty F-150. I don't ever wash the thing, but I love it, and I take care of it where it counts. And I remember old commercials. It was a Super Bowl commercial, where it's like all these friends met up after some crazy catastrophe, and they were like, "Hey man, where's Bill?" "Oh, Bill drives a Chevy," or whatever it was, and it was like this weird and we'll get into tribalism later in this video, but there was this odd sense of personal identity. This happens and I'm guilty of this with Androids. I have an Android phone. I've had one my whole life. I've never owned an Apple phone. That's a real thing. You can look up memes on Apple users versus Android users, and it's a very huge personal identity thing for a cellular device.
Oh, yeah. But going back to the job thing, it's thinking about it. It's like, okay, when I was, in school, it's not that interesting because you're studying, English education. Then I go to Shanghai, and like I said, it was interesting. That was teaching art in China. Well, then I get back, and I was like, oh, well, I wanted to be a flight attendant, but I decided not to, even though it felt glamorous. I met Josh, and I was like, well,
I messed that up.
Okay, sorry. I had to cancel my second interviews and a different job, and I was like, no, I kind of like this guy, and if I move across country, and I'm very picky, I don't like very many people, so if I move across country, I guess we can't date, so, because we just met, so I said, oh, no. But then I was working part-time as a sub, and as a writer, and they're like, oh, okay, so you're an unsuccessful writer? You haven't published a book yet? Okay, I mean, I just, started writing my novel. okay, next.
Yeah. Well,
And meeting people, that's just,
and I think, and I've had to learn this as I've gotten older, but like learning how to listen to people and learning how to realize like I can't prejudge someone's situation. I always try to give at least everybody 5 to 10 minutes of uninterrupted time to talk about themselves, and mostly because I don't want to overlook something.
yeah.
And I've made I'm a basket weaver, and I always try to have that with a follow up question. Oh, that's really I always, and I'm sorry if anyone's ever met me and had this happen to them. I will always follow up whatever you do or whatever you're interested in. Wow, that's really cool. Tell me about that. I always say that. It's horrible, but it's a habit I got into because I wanted to not diminish something that was. This person felt that it was important enough about themselves to share it with me, give them an opportunity to live in that, and then I might even glean something. I did. I've done everything. I played football. I did ballet. I've done everything under the sun, and I found some interest in it in some way that it applied to me. Irregardless of what my predispositions were for it. So I think you really close yourself off. And again,
Yeah.
you can maintain yourself a sense of self while you do these things, but don't allow, you know, societal standards or anything like that to exclude you from doing something. Ask, feminists in the 1950s. They said, well, women don't do that.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Like, imagine how much we would have lost out on in all
Uh,
these things moving forward if they just accepted this isn't supposed to happen or that's not supposed to be a thing.
and I loved China. This is no dig on China, but I did get told that by some of my Chinese male friends. They go, "You want to?" I don't remember what it was. Maybe it was archery or something. And I
Mhm.
go, "Women don't do that." I said, "What?" And as and
The Texan in you angers. What you mean women don't do that?
and I don't know how it is with most people. These guys, maybe they were from a more rural area, more traditional. Who knows? But I
And
did get told that no, women don't do that.
wait, you can find people here in the states that'll do that. I think
Oh yeah,
and you'd be amazed. And this, I was kind of trying to get to this that people are very quick to paint with a broad brush.
yeah,
And they'll say, because again, on the surface, which you look at me, I'm a relatively tall, slightly balding, older Hispanic male with mustache on. There's a lot of things that they'll say. Well, he needs to be X Y Z. He needs to be X Y Z. And a lot of people will sit there and say, well, I am a slightly balding, 30-year-old Hispanic male. I need to have X Y Z. I need to be X Y Z. And it's like the most sad, awful, depressing thing to watch someone allow themselves to just be the demographics they belong to. They'll allow themselves to be made up. This is everything that's important about me is my demographics.
I almost got married because I had a time clock at 21.
Yeah.
Well, I was in 6 weddings, but at 21, because the church I grew up in was very, very conservative, and the college I went to first was the first 2 years was very conservative, and all of my friends got married like at 20 and 19, and I had the shyness, insecurities, horrible insecurities because of things.
I don't know
but
why. I can't imagine why.
oh, thanks.
Society put those in you. I don't know why you'd have them.
Well, it's a long story. I don't want to get into it. But so yeah, I was dating a guy and he proposed to me at 21, and I was like, well, I just don't. I started to realize we didn't want the same path in life, and there was nothing wrong with him. It just like we didn't want the same things, and I was like, oh yeah, we'll travel, and he was like, yeah, across the United States, and I was like, I thought we would go to Europe, and he's like, yeah, when after we retire, when we're 65, and I was like, oh well, and then there was different things, and we just didn't want the same things in life, but I would have married someone that wasn't right for me, and I would have tried to fit into this mold to just do things I didn't want to do. And if that's what your goal is to raise a bunch of children or anything like that, it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful.
No, we're not hating on that. That's a legitimate life goal.
It's
I don't
wonderful.
think there's anything wrong with that.
I think it is. And if your best goal in life, not best goal, if your goal in life is to be a great mother, to be anything, that's wonderful. But for me, I wanted to go travel the world. And so I was like, oh, well, maybe. And it was devastating to me because I he was like my second real boyfriend. And
Well, I mean, you guys were engaged.
yeah,
This wasn't
we were
like, hey, I
engaged.
broke up with him and it was whatever. Like there was rings that had to be exchanged and like that's
Yeah, we were
I
like
don't
tied
even
families,
yeah
and
yeah.
it was it was it was not good afterwards. I was pretty depressed, but I felt like it needed to happen, and now I'm sure. I know I haven't talked to him, but I know he's way happier for it. He's like married with kids and stuff, and you know.
And she's clearly way happier, right? Right.
That's what I was getting at.
Follow-up?
Eventually, after I came back from China and like, just found myself and what I wanted in a person, I grilled him.
Yes.
I was so done with dating.
I was well done on that grill.
I had ended up dating quite a bit after my breakup, and then yeah, I met this guy and I was like, oh, let's interview you, you handsome fellow. You might get me stuck in Texas. I don't like that.
I ruined all her life goals.
I was like, let's see. Oh, check. Check.
Well,
and I just checked off all of them, and I love him, adore him.
We're about to have an intermission, so I'm going to reset
sorry.
everything. No, you're good. This was greatness. I love this. Hold on.
You don't have to say intermission every time.
Well, I just doing it so I know to mark it.
Oh, but back to that, I was going to say that when I broke up with him, I realized that I wasn't the person I wanted to be yet. I kept saying, oh, I want to, do art, or mostly I wanted to write stories, but that seemed like a less attainable goal. So I thought, wow, I want to sell my art on Etsy or something, make money with art, or travel the world. And so I made myself a list, and it might be very helpful for anybody else, but I made myself a list of, I don't remember if it was 5 or 10 things I wanted to do before I got married. And some of them were very silly. And one of them was live in another country and ride on the back of a motorcycle, which was silly. But I ended up just riding on the back of a bunch of mopeds.
Hey, two-wheeled motor conveyance. Okay?
There weren't that many, motorcycles. And I ended up jumping out of a plane, which was not on my list, but really fun and awesome.
Cool. Still very cool.
And so, yeah, but it was just like, I wanted to be the best person I could be first. Because I was like, will I attract the person I want to attract? I don't know. I kind of just keep wanting to do things and not doing them. And I wasn't interesting to myself. So, I don't know.
Well, and you found yourself. And had you not been honest, and had you not been self-critical about, am I doing that? Am I doing myself a disservice? Am I walking away from what I know? And there's this odd ickiness to it, and you can't undo this. I don't know whether it's like your soul talking to you or whatever, but everyone's experienced this at one point or another, that they're doing something that they feel is betraying who they are, or they're conforming to something that feels like they're betraying themselves or something important to them, whether it's their values or just their personal preference. And you're allowed to have those. Like I said before, it's an important part of who you are. And I bring all this kind of together, and I'm glad it segued into this, that all of this is part of a two-sided coin, and we'll talk about tribalism, like I said we would before. And there's tribalism in the sense that because of certain things, of my religious predispositions, my life goals, part of the culture that I grew up in or whatever, that I do belong and have some sense of identity with these things. These are the things that sandpapered me or chiseled me into the person that I am or I've become today, versus tribalism that thinks for me. And it's very dangerous now. And I think if there's anything that I would consider like the biggest enemy of the channel Stoic Bros, if I could go insert evil villain here, it would be the negative side effects of tribalism, and that's allowing yourself to be subject to someone else's will, someone else's wants and goals for you. And you say, well, I guess these are mine. I guess I agree with this person. And everyone's guilty of this to some extent. I have a weird aversion to Apple products. I have no real reason for it. And at least I'm aware. And I'm like, well, clearly this is a bias. This is an implicit bias I've developed over years.
I thought you were talking about apple cobbler.
Yeah, no, yeah. I don't like pies. Yeah.
Really?
No, but I mean, like, if you you know have a certain set of values and beliefs, and you make decisions based off that. That's healthy.
Yeah.
Any perspective, I think every perspective, to a certain extent, even if you're the crazy guy on the street corner saying the time is nigh, you have a value to society. I think the fear in this is that tribalism now is leading to extremism.
Yeah.
And you'll reach and insert political party, insert major corporation, insert brand, insert religious predisposition. You can be pushed to a point of zealotry where nothing, they can do no wrong. These people could be completely destroying my life. They could be completely destroying what I think is important in humanity. And that's what my tribe told me to think. So sure, yeah. And you are a mouthpiece now for someone else. You are now slap a number on you. You're consumer XYZ. You're paying me the money that you're making and propagating what I believe is important to you. Never here on Stoic Bros am I ever going to turn around and tell you should think XYZ. You should say XYZ. I'm going to give suggestions on certain things, but most of these are principles to apply when thinking about this. There's my preferences, and then this is probably a good lens to look at certain things objectively. This is all about being objective. And I actually want to, and I put this in, Juan Lechuga has now made my notes once more. He specifically went out and said that when he wants to consume media, he specifically has accounts designed to get, I want really conservative news, I want really liberal news, I want the guys that act like they're independent, or at least try to be independent, and he makes up his own mind about how he feels on a specific topic or a specific world event. And we actually watched something on this. It's on I Am Legend.
Oh, yeah.
And they were talking about the end of the actual novel I Am Legend. And part of that was every hero is a villain.
Spoiler alert?
Yeah, super big spoiler alert. Yeah, for anyone wanting to look into that.
A minute or
and
two.
you know what? I'll add a link to this guy's video because I think it's awesome. But every hero is a villain to somebody else. No matter what it is, because ultimately we're all vying for the same thing, and it's to be happy and healthy. There's a finite level of stuff, and we should always try to live harmoniously with each other, but ultimately we will eventually have opposing wants and values, and this is kind of the reason for war and argument and all of that. But if it's done productively, we should go to a better tomorrow. If it's done correctly and stoically, we should make our lives better for each other. And you have people, again, like Juan, who's like, hey, I want to be the most educated I can be on this so I don't make an ignorant decision.
Yeah.
Or I try to cut out as much implicit bias as I could possibly have, and they're not basically on the beck and call or being basically a little whipping boy for somebody else's objectives for him. And I think it's very important. And I think of all of the things that I think we've talked about or I've talked about on the show, like that's one that really hits hard with me, because I don't think I've seen a single aspect of daily human society that isn't affected by tribalism, the negative sides of tribalism, where you just really allow yourself, like you said, you can marry the wrong guy. You can vote for the wrong guy. You can believe the wrong news thing. You can, buy the wrong product, all because you fell for someone else's wants for you.
Yeah.
As opposed to, really looking at your own values, developing your own values and your own opinion, and then sharing that with us. Allow us to disagree, man. Like, discourse is incredible.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is a minor example of this, but whenever at some point the school dress code of the very conservative Christian college that I went to they were like, oh yeah, well, the dress code is because God gave you lines, and people would misconstrue the dress code to be biblical. And it's like, this is a school dress code, just because. And
this is in scripture. This is.
And
policy.
there's no Bible verse about God gave you lines where your elbow is where it needs to go, and I would approve
conforming,
or here or wherever that's not in the scripture.
Mm-hmm.
And because someone tells you doesn't make it so, and because other people do this doesn't.
And I think that really that cuts down to that idea of be unique, man, be strange, be different, but don't if you're ever in a position of power, or you're ever in a position, whether you're a parent or a boss or whatever, you're not the expert in everything. Value these different perspectives and try to learn something from them, as opposed to trying to crush them, or as opposed to trying to. You should persuade people if you believe you're doing something good and righteous, but understand that we are all probably 85% wrong about everything we know, because we don't know everything. In a more philosophical way, none of us know everything, so it's inevitable that we're wrong about stuff.
And you know what I find interesting, and is that now self-expression physically with hair, we have so many different clothing is you can do anything and you won't get that many weird looks. I mean, you could dress up however you want. But now it's strange, because used to you could express however, whatever was on your mind, but not physically, and now it's kind of the opposite. You have to be very careful what you say, because, you know, even out of context. I mean, you shouldn't say awful things.
No,
bad things are bad things, but like sometimes people get something taken out of context, and then it gets misconstrued, or you have a different thought within your tribe, and oh no, better beat him over the head with it. They can't think that way.
And I think everybody that creates content, or everyone that participates in social discourse, would agree that censorship is very dangerous. And I'm sure the algorithm will catch it and flag it or whatever, but like, there's a difference in between trying to protect people. You know, I don't want my kid, if I had one, to be, you know, seeing pornographic material, or honestly, like, and again, it's as a police officer, I see awful violent stuff all the time. Nobody needs to be looking at dead bodies. Nobody needs to see what happens when, if somebody shoots somebody else or gets stabbed or whatever, all of the above. Nobody should have to witness that. But at the same time, like, the truth is out there, and people's experiences and realities are out there, and they should be allowed to share those, even if they rub you the wrong way, even if they don't fall in line with your sense of sensibilities. I think the best, I have an affinity for both Western and Eastern philosophy. I have an affinity for their styles of art and music, and honestly, like, I can objectively look at certain aspects of governance and of lawmaking and of, any of these things, and see that there's value to a certain extent with all of it. It's just I design my own personal relationship with those things through my own lens that's going to be unique. And I think the whole part of that lecture is to, if you start seeing the hammer come down on people just because you're not falling in line with what this group believes, maybe you're in the wrong group.
Yeah, and you could be wrong, but just because someone's offended does not, if you're offended doesn't make you right. As Ricky Gervais says, and a lot of other people say, just because you're offended doesn't make you right. And I keep going back to the church analogy, but there were certain things that I was told that by other members of the church, we shouldn't do that because it could offend someone. And there is a Bible verse that says something about that, but I think it means something different rather than, they wore a spaghetti strap shirt. I'm offended.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's a difference in between being a troll and being yourself. There's a very big. I'm not doing this to get a rise out of somebody. This is truly who I believe I am. I'm not doing this to be abrasive. I'm not doing this to be divisive. I'm doing this because I believe this is important. If it's a value to you, dude, go fly that flag, man. Like, do your thing. But like, it is, and I think again that the danger is that there's this status quo that people. On, like I said, every side of the political or socioeconomic spectrum that they're trying to maintain or they're trying to impose on someone else. It said, no, you should just represent your values. And if somebody agrees with them, cool. If they don't, talk about it. If you can't talk about it, don't argue. just separate and then come back until you can have a healthy conversation. But we're, I think it's a pretty good place. I feel pretty good about it at that note. I really like that. Don't be a sheep. Be a stoic and be yourself. You are unique and valuable. Feel that way. You have anything else, any parting words you want to give to our audience?
I think that, people that are fitting in with specific tribes and or specific fandoms, I don't know. It doesn't make you interesting. What makes you interesting is yourself
Mhm.
and the fact that, I don't know, the guy with the collected flamingos, I don't know.
Dude, cool guy, man.
Interesting.
How did this guy find flamingos all over the world, and how is he keeping them in his backyard? And should I call Peter? You know, should I be calling someone about this?
the garden ones.
No, I thought you were actual flamingos.
Or little,
This got way more-
flamingo pictures. I
This
don't
guy
know.
got way more interesting.
Just or the old lady that has memorized everybody on her street and
Mhm.
bakes them a cake or anything, where just be yourself and do good for other people. And I don't know. Actually, that's advice. Never mind.
Yeah. No, I think you just stop trying to fit in, man.
Yeah.
Honestly, I guess if I could leave y'all with anything, like really and honestly, like stop conforming. Fight the power, whatever. Call to arms. No, but ultimately, what I'm asking you guys to do is study, be objective, and as always, internet, stay stoic.
Stay stoic.